Good morning, friends. Tashin here. It's a beautiful fall morning in South Brooklyn. And feel happy today. It's a good day for a lot of reasons. Anyway, I wanted to make a video about bio-emotive. I have a long blog post about bio-emotive, but I wanted to talk verbally about it and share how I think about it and why I appreciate it so much. I share some of this stuff in the blog post, but it hits different when you hear it from someone, and I'm really devoted to bio-emotive. I'm grateful for it. It's been such a blessing in my life, and I think it's an important medicine for the world. There are these different things that are like modalities that I think of as almost like remedial, where maybe at an earlier point in history or a simpler time of life, these things would have just been natural or easy or simple, and we would have just known how to do them. But because of the circumstances of modern life and modern culture, we've kind of forgotten how to do them, or there's obstructions or challenges that make these seemingly natural, simple things much harder. And I think crying and feeling our feelings and resolving our feelings, expressing our feelings, falls into that category. And yeah, this is very personal for me. I remember as a kid, I could cry very easily, and I loved crying. I noticed that I always felt better after I cried. And it's a little bit, this is sort of maybe a gross metaphor, but it's a little bit like vomiting when you're sick. I mean, it's sometimes a little bit unpleasant to do that, but you feel better afterwards. And crying was like that for me. And then at some point, I don't remember exactly when, but when I was maybe 11, 12, 13, I just stopped being able to cry, and I couldn't cry. And that was painful for me and confusing for me. And I genuinely wanted to. I genuinely wanted to cry, but I couldn't for whatever reason. And there was a long stretch of my life for 10, 12, 15 years. I don't really know how long, where it was nearly impossible to cry. And that I seem to remember crying like 3 or 4 times over more than a decade. It must have been more than a decade. And I remember this really came to a head when my grandfather Jim died. This was my father's father. And I really loved my grandfather Jim. And I was so sad that he had passed. And I missed him. And I wished that I'd been there. I wasn't there when he died. And I just couldn't cry. I remember being like, I think I'm sad, but I'm not crying. And I wish I could cry. It feels weird that I'm not crying. Like I'm not really grieving his death. And different people grieve in different ways, and I kind of made peace with it at the time that I wasn't crying about it. But it struck me as weird or wrong or broken that I couldn't cry, because I really genuinely loved him so deeply, and I was really sad that he was dead, but I just couldn't cry, and the tears wouldn't come. And this is such a stark contrast for me to when my own mother passed. I was, of course, very sad when she died. And the day that she died, I was thankfully in the room with her when she passed. And I was able to just sob. I stayed in the room and sobbed for what must have been an hour, and just full on wailing. It was audible to other people in the building. And I cried for most of that day, and in the days to come. But it was so easy to cry. It was so available. And of course, part of it had to do with it being my mother, but it was really, a lot of it had to do with all the work that I'd done in between when I was 22 or 21 when my grandfather died, and when I was 32 when my mother died. If I'm getting the math right. But I'd really done a lot of work And one of the big parts there, in fact, I'd say the big part, was learning bio-emotive. And I was really blessed to be exposed to bio-emotive when I was, I think, 24, 25. Yeah, I must have been 25. And Doug Tatarin came to visit what's now called Maple when I was there. And he gave a presentation on it. And it was very compelling. And also, during that time, I had a little bit of a minor nervous breakdown, like a panic attack type thing. And Soryu, my teacher, asked Doug to help me since he was there, and it seemed like bio-emotive would be helpful. And I remember Doug leading me through a session of bio-emotive where, it just seemed it was so heavy, and I was feeling so much, and it was so overwhelming, and I couldn't get it out. And then somehow, I remember being confused. Somehow it was as if a lot of the emotional weight lifted. And I remember feeling this very distinctly, like there was just this whole weight over my body. And then suddenly, through Doug's help, this seeming magic, like it was lifted from my right arm and my left leg. I remember that really clearly. I don't know why those parts of my body, but suddenly it felt much more bearable. And in retrospect, it was because he asked me what I was feeling and helped me find the feeling words for it. And when I said the feeling words and expressed them, they resolved to some extent. And that was good. And I felt better. But it seemed like magic. And he kind of did it from the outside. And I didn't necessarily have the skill to do that repeatedly for myself, even though that really persuaded me, this bio-emotive stuff is really useful. And it took a while, actually, for me to learn to do this for myself. And a big part of it was that if we fast forwarded to, I guess, 2020, when I came out of my long solitary retreat, amongst other things, I was talking extensively with my friend Daniel Thorson, and he was working on sort of a curriculum for Maple, and they were using bio-emotive. And I guess it was also the bio-emotive retreat in 2019. That must have been it. It's 2019 and 2020. Anyway, the bio-emotive retreat was at Maple. Doug and his family came, his wife and his daughter, and did a retreat for us. And that summer Daniel was working on a curriculum for Maple, and it involved bio-emotive, and Daniel was practicing it a bunch, and a lot of people at Maple were practicing a bunch. And I did kind of a pairing with Daniel where we did bio-emotive for each other a lot. And yeah, I just practiced that muscle a ton and also understood it a lot better. I'd heard the presentation in 2015, but it sunk in at a deeper level in 2019. And then I just used it extensively. And importantly, that really helped me to cry. I could suddenly cry again. And that was so useful to me. I mean, I think I used to experience my emotions as kind of this storm that would come and go, and it would be confusing when it would come, and then it would kind of overwhelm me when it was present. And I felt almost victimized by my emotions. It was like I was subject to them. And that's not how I feel at all. I do feel like I'm very sensitive, and I feel a lot of emotions, and I feel them often about a lot of things, but it's always clear to me why I'm feeling them and what I'm feeling. My friend Jane likes to joke that when she asks me how I'm feeling, that like 0.89 seconds later, I'm answering the full range of what I'm feeling, and it's like 10 things, and I'm like, I'm feeling this about this, and it really does seem like that. I know what I'm feeling about a lot of different things, and I'm so grateful for that. There's this kind of emotional intelligence or emotional literacy that bio-emotive in particular has really helped me to cultivate. And I have this confidence that when I feel emotions that I identify them and discern them and express them and most importantly, resolve them. And, there's a period of 1 or 2 years after diving deeply into bio-emotive where I was just doing it all the time. And there was almost this backlog. I was crying all the time. And, now I still cry if there's emotions moving through me, of course, but it feels much less like there's a backlog of those kinds of feelings resolved. I think there's still, I could get into the nitty gritty of how I view my psyche, but I'll save that for another video into our private conversation. But point being, there's a lot of feelings that have been felt through, and now, if anything, they tend to resolve in laughter a lot of the time. In the same way that for a couple of years, I would just start crying pretty much every day. I still cry when there's emotions, but now I just laugh a lot of the time, and I'll just start laughing randomly, and I do think that that's telling. The baseline is much more like happiness, and there's a lot of different things that I've worked on over the years, but bio-emotive just been such a critical part. And not only did it teach me to cry again and help me relearn to cry and help my nervous system relearn how to cry, but I also have so much more intelligence about what my emotions are and what other people's emotions are, what they mean and how to work with them. And I'll just always be so grateful for that. And as I've done this more and more myself and also helped other people with it, I've really come to see what Doug is talking about with what he calls alexithymia. And I think this is very widespread. Alexithymia, it's nice because I know ancient Greek to some degree. So it's like is a negative and lex is like words or account. And thymia is thumos, is for our purposes, emotions. It's also like honor, desire, duty, spiritedness. And there's this widespread lack of ability to put words to our emotions. That's what alexithymia means. And it's like, well, why is that? And I have a lot of thoughts about it, but it does seem especially common for men. And I would be really interested in what caused my inability to cry and what that was, because I don't have any memories of people shaming me for crying or, and my conscious mind wanted to cry. But I do think that, as best I can tell, there's systemic, widespread, reinforcing incentives against crying and against men expressing their emotions especially. It does seem very gendered to me. As far as I can tell, I don't know. This is the way I make sense of it myself in my own world. You can make sense of it in your own world, but it seems to me like we systemically, habitually, repeatedly disconnect men from their emotions and their feelings and their bodies and their hearts and from kindness, and that we systemically do the same thing with women with their power. And so that's why I say love for my brothers and power for my sisters. I think that's the healing medicine that the world needs culturally at this time. And it's not that we want to disempower men to make women more powerful, or we want to make women less emotional to even it out or something. I think that's a very short-sighted direction. And there are people who want to take it that way, but I don't. And instead, I think things like spreading bio-emotive and helping people to get in touch with their emotions, to feel their feelings, and to express them and resolve them is so important. And it's important not only for ourselves personally to be able to feel our feelings and resolve them, but also interpersonally to express them. Like in bio-emotive, there's the 4 emotions, and then there's the interpersonal feelings. There's these layers of different kinds of emotions and feelings, and there's this taxonomy of them, and you go through them in a sequence. And the interpersonal feelings, when you name them to someone else, they're so powerful. They contain information that you have that other people need to know. And typically there's a almost symmetrical piece of information that comes out from them of an interpersonal feeling that they have that you need to know. And so being able to have those conversations where it's like, hey, I feel sad because I feel abandoned, or I feel angry because I'm feeling disrespected. In this case, abandoned and disrespected would be interpersonal feelings. That's really valuable signal for someone else who you're relating to and who you care about and you want to be having some kind of depth of relationship with, whether it's a friend or a partner or a collaborator or whatever. That's really meaningful information, and people need to know that, and surfacing that helps clean up and resolve whatever's difficult interpersonally. And I've seen that again and again since learning this framework. And again, all this is stuff that in retrospect is sort of obvious, and it's like, well, you feel happy or you feel sad or you feel angry or afraid or whatever, and yeah, you feel abandoned or disrespected or whatever it is. There's something simple about it. There's something basic about it. But because of the complexities of modern society, we become disconnected from these basics, and something like bio-emotive is just so useful for relearning the basics. It's like, I always think about that, I forget the exact thing, but in Derek Zoolander, there's the school for kids who can't read good. And so I always think of that with bio-emotive, because it's like the bio-emotive technique for people who can't feel good. It makes me laugh. So it's like, that was me. I couldn't feel my feelings, and I didn't know what I was feeling, and I couldn't name them or express them, let alone resolve them. And that was hell. That was really a kind of hell. I talk about hell in the bio-emotive article, and that's a kind of hell. And bio-emotive is one of the things that consistently helps me get out of hell when I go to hell, metaphorically speaking. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. My biggest problem with bio-emotive these days is sometimes I'll forget. And then whenever I remember, I'm like, and I cry, and I name what I'm feeling, and I cry. I'm like, oh, why didn't I do that several hours earlier? I feel so much better. But so it goes. So I'm really grateful to bio-emotive for helping me to really come into right relationship with my emotions, and being able to recognize them and name them and express them and ultimately resolve them, not only in the immediate, but also at deeper and deeper levels, so that these feeling beliefs are resolved also, or updated. And coherence therapy gives a really good account of why that would be the case. I think coherence therapy is such an incredible frame on what's happening with a technique like bio-emotive or focusing or core transformation or IFS or whatever. It gives a really compelling account of why these things would work at all. But the bio-emotive is how to do it. And I'm not only grateful for myself, but I'm increasingly, as every year goes by, more and more passionate about helping other people to learn this framework and come in contact with their feelings and be able to cry again, be able to process their feelings, be able to resolve their feelings, even purify their feeling beliefs, the sanskaras, the patterns that are holding us back from our fullest, most vibrant life. And so a few times a year these days, I'll have a conversation with someone where it's like, oh, it's time to break out bio-emotive. And I can teach someone bio-emotive in something like 1, 2, 3 hours, either on the same day or ideally with a bit of repetition and practice. But and the bio-emotive article goes a long way towards helping with this. Also, I'm so grateful that the Tatarans let me write that article and share it with the world, because I think it explains really clearly what bio-emotive is and how to do it and what's important about it. And yeah, I just want to spread it to more people. So I have ideas about what that might look like, and whether and how I'll do that remains a bit to be seen, but I have some ideas brewing. And in the meantime, I wanted to make this video to share with you why it's so important. And if this is compelling to you, I definitely recommend reading my bio-emotive article And you can also check out all of the resources that the Tatarans have with the bio-emotive framework. And, they have ebooks and they have courses, I believe, asynchronous ones, and also live events and workshops and stuff like that. Definitely really valuable to work with someone who knows bio-emotive and can demonstrate it for you and lead you through it and help you learn it. The article is sort of the information download, and then it's really helpful to work with someone who actually knows it and can practice it and can also like mirror what they think you're feeling and help you find words for it. The Tatarans did that for me, and Daniel did that for me, and that helped me to learn to be able to do it on my own and to be able to do it with other people. So anyway, big thumbs up. Definitely endorse the bio-emotive framework and the Dadera technique. And I hope that if you are struggling with your emotions, if you have a difficult time knowing what you're feeling, or if you have difficulty crying, then I can really recommend learning bio-emotive and diving deep into it as a way to work with those emotions and also, escape hells of emotions if you're in them. So, all right, sending you love, friends. Be well. Take care.